The following audio recording has been designed for learning purposes only. Do not share, distribute, or provide any type of copies, or this audio lesson will not be made available to you. Good luck with today's lesson.
Well, I see the tornado drill signs are gone, so hopefully we won't be interrupted by that. That was nice. Did anyone have one go off in that class? Good. All right, cool. All right, how many of you have ever done, it used to be called the telegraph game. Shows how old I am, but now it's called sometimes the telephone game. You know, where like you tell someone something, and then you pass it around, and then you find out. Yeah, Houston, you're the only one. Okay, Nicole, you have. All right. So yeah, I'm going to tell Nicole something. All right, and I gotta take this down. And she's going to tell Andrew that same thing, and however you guys want to pass it around, it's fine with me. Then we'll say Houston here. We'll end up getting it last, and we're going to see how this message changes. Okay. By the time from Nicole to Houston, okay? And there's no problem if it changes, okay? But I'm going to tell you guys to do something I'm never going to tell you again. Talk amongst yourselves. You don't talk about amusement park rides this time. Talk about anything. Talk about how the Lions are going to screw up or something like that this season. Talk about the weekend. Talk about anything. But you're going to have this guy going on in the background too.
Okay.
So you're going to have this guy in the background.
Time to begin.
Yeah, we'll have this guy talking in the background.
Okay,
so we're going to have this guy in the background. So,
because these two guys
talk amongst
generate that
yourselves.
pattern.
Listen to this guy if you want.
Figure out how they're interconnected and to figure out how they generate the pattern. This is a standard kind of problem that neuroscientists typically want to solve. They want to know how neural circuitry does some particular task. And this is the particular task that we chose to illustrate this on. And you'll be using tools. The tools you'll use will be basically pretty much recording from the neurons,
now you tell that to Andrew.
passing depolarizing currents into them to make them fire when they wouldn't otherwise be doing so.
I mean, if you want to listen to this guy talk, go for it.
Prevent them from firing
interesting
even though
too.
they want to do so. And by those two kinds of manipulations and recording, you're going to be able to figure it all out. Plus, the added ingredient will be some guidance from us. Now I'll go into this a little bit more and introduce you to it a little bit more in a couple of minutes. But first, let's look at some of the logistics. First of all, you are going to have a very important homework assignment, and you're going to have some study questions that Dr. Grisham refers to as a quiz, handed out at the end of this hour, or maybe you already have them. And they will be due at the very beginning of next Friday's lecture. And Dr. Grisham is a real lion about this. If you don't have those turned in by the first minute of lecture, you're dead. Okay? And the reason for that is what I'll do in the lecture.
Even if it goes
what I'll do
through
in the lecture is
correctly,
to,
it's still kind of weird.
And we'll talk about the answers, and some of you will want to argue about the results.
It might have changed. It might be weird. It could. Now you pass it on.
So that's that quiz.
Now you gotta whisper it. You have to whisper it. You have to whisper it though. You have to whisper it. Yeah, so other people don't hear it.
Which are concerned with theories of how these kinds of rhythmic activities, left, right.
You can tell our note taker. Yeah,
I
don't know if you want to be part of it. But.
Stepping we do as we walk, the flying of a bird. All those things are generated in kind of the same way. So if you're studying one, you're kind of studying the mechanisms of the other. They're very common in all sorts of vertebrate and, for that matter, invertebrate locomotion. And there are various theories about how those rhythms are generated. And the lab manual describes three of somewhat larger, there are more theories than three.
Okay, let's turn this guy off. Let's turn that guy off. Okay, so let's just get rid of him too. Okay, so Houston, what did you get? That's pretty good. That's not too bad. You guys, you didn't really change it. You just kind of cut a lot out of it, but that's not too bad. Okay, I had to write it down. I thought about fall and everything at the beginning of the season. Fall is my favorite season in Los Angeles. Watching the birds change color and fall from the trees. That was by David Letterman. Because, you know, Los Angeles is real smoggy, pollution and everything, so the birds change color and fall from the trees. I used this one before for a class, and it changed in the very first person. I told a young lady it, and she changed it because she thought I was crazy. Because she thought birds don't change color and fall from the trees, leaves do. So she was the very first one to change it because she thought I was nuts, and she said change from birds to leaves. And I thought, no, I meant to say birds. I really didn't read it wrong, okay? So, but, okay, so, it definitely changed. It definitely changed. Think about that. Now, we got something here. Why do you think it changed? Why do you think it changed? Why was it tough to hear it right? I mean, really, you were just telling the person next to you. I mean, there's not that many people in here. How did it change? Why did it change? Yeah, it was kind of stupid in the beginning. Yeah, the other one I used usually makes more sense. Yeah, it was kind of a weird message in the first place. Plus, you had that guy talking. I don't know what he was talking about. All right, nobody pays attention to him. But I usually have that guy or some other guy I use and kind of babbles on in the background. So you had that noise going on. Plus, I told you to talk about anything else that you wanted to talk about. And giving you a choice, you might have picked a topic that you actually cared more about than this message going around. So maybe you were talking about the Lions. Maybe you were talking about this weekend. It's supposed to be nice this weekend. Maybe you're talking about going out to the cider mills are open or something, I don't know, a party or something, okay? So you might be talking about something else other than what this quote, so something you're more interested in. So think about that as I pass this out, because it's a good question. This article brings up a good point that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to give you guys a little quiz today. And I'm going to grade you that. I'm going to quiz you anyway. This gives me time to get rid of this guy and go with something else. So, still no black pen. Who here considers themselves, good article in case you ever have to negotiate in a hostage situation. But who here considers himself or herself a good listener? Good listeners? Okay, good listener. You think you listen more than you talk? I mean, you okay, all right. Okay. You admit you're not a good listener? How come?
Because I do interrupt people a lot. Just because I'm like, whatever comes to my head sometimes, it just comes out and then I interrupt people.
Yeah.
So.
I'll admit, my kids think I'm a bad listener. I have to admit I'm a bad listener, too. I usually try to come up with what I'm going to say before they're even done talking. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, what's my reply? How am I going to come back to that? Before I even finish what they're saying, okay, I'm going to come back with something to zing and undercut, which is not good, all right? Which isn't a good thing to do. And there's a lot of things that come into play into being a bad listener. But let me ask you this. Can anyone tell me what is the difference between these two? Is there a difference between the two? Is it just semantics, or is there a difference between the two? Is there a difference between the two, or is it not? Yeah, Con.
Hearing is just noise, but listening and taking what's being said.
Yeah, right. I mean, we all hear, right? If you got 2 ears, and if you don't have any, physical disability, you hear. You can't help it, right? But listening, and sometimes some theorists call active listening, it takes effort. It actually takes effort to listen to someone. A lot of times they say the mind's a computer, and you can take all the stuff in it, whatever. It really isn't. You can't. If you took in every noise that's going on in the background, your head would explode. You can't hear everything. So it's good. It's good you don't hear everything. But how many times have you talked to someone and said, okay, don't forget, pick me up, 3 o'clock at Dr. Smith's office on Main Street. At 3 o'clock, Dr. Smith's office on Main Street. All right, and come 3 o'clock, you're going to be standing by yourself on Main Street at Dr. Smith's office. Because this person, they're nodding their head, they're saying, okay, you're smiling, yeah, you know people like that. Hopefully you're not that person. What's the expression, lights are on, nobody's home, right? They're, sure, but they're not listening, right? Maybe they're thinking about the game last night, they're thinking about what they're going to wear for the party the next day. They're going to think about anything, and they look like they're listening, but they're not, okay? And there's lots of reasons for that. Maybe they are thinking about something else. There's terms called like, when maybe they focus on just one subject and that's all they think about or something. Or maybe there's just, we talk about psychological noise in the background, where they're focused on one thing and you can't get through, okay? They're not listening. So, listening, that's a big deal. My parents used to always tell me, when I was like 2 years old, 3 years old, they thought I had a hearing disability because I would just sit and watch television, and they'd call me, and they'd call me, and they'd call me, and I wouldn't reply. They took me to a hospital downtown, had my hearing checked, and the doctor said, there's nothing wrong with your son, he's just ignoring you. It's true, until they said something interesting. I always heard it when they said it was time to eat, but otherwise I didn't pay any attention. I just wanted to watch TV, I didn't care about them, okay? So when we hear something important, all right, we will. So, what does this have to do with giving a speech? Well, you gotta be a good listener, right? You gotta be a good listener. You have a whole chapter on it in your book too. So, you have to be a good listener if you're gonna be a good speaker. Okay? It's not easy. I'll admit, it's not easy being a good listener. We kind of touched on some things when we talked about communication model. There's so many things going on. What do you have to do to be a good listener? What does it take to be a good listener? Okay? There are a few things. I'll start you off. One, and I should say, and a couple people aren't here who I wish they were. The participation, you don't get 50 points, but I do look around during speeches to see who's on the phone, who's texting, and everything like that. Yeah, that does come into play in participation points. If you're always texting when people are giving speeches, you're a good listener, and that's going to hurt you. Okay, so yeah, prepare yourself, focus. Maybe you got to put the phone away. Studies have been shown that just some people, if they just know their phone is on, if you just put the phone in front of them, they have an overwhelming urge just to reach for it. I mean, it's been shown they've been bribed to not touch it, but they still have to get that phone. It's like they feel like someone's calling them. They're missing some important, earth-shattering message, and I have to check. If you're like that, and you know you gotta listen to some really important speeches coming up, it might tear you apart, but maybe you leave the phone at home. Maybe you turn it off. Maybe you do something so you know I'm not gonna check it. I've gotta check it, but I just gotta keep it physically away from me. So maybe you have to do that. Maybe you gotta do that. But sleep. We said you gotta get enough sleep to give a speech. Yeah, you gotta get enough sleep to listen to a speech too. Especially if you know the speeches aren't really in your interest. You really aren't gonna be fascinated by them. Yeah, you gotta get enough sleep. All right. Going to bed around 3 in the morning for speeches that are gonna start at 7 in the morning, and you're not up your alley, and they're not topics that really concern you. That's probably a good idea. They don't make enough coffee. For that. So prepare yourself physically. What else can you do? To make yourself a better listener? Anything?
Dress comfortable.
Hey, what the heck? Yeah, I'm gonna put that. Comfort. I wish I could speak a spell. Dress comfortable. All right. Yeah. I mean, why? If it's gonna be a hot room, don't overdress or something like that. That makes sense. Dress comfortable. Okay. Take notes. Again, good time to remind you guys, you can use your notes for your final in this class. So take good notes. If you've ever taken a note-taking class, it's a good idea if you don't think you're taking notes. All right? Then the more notes you take, the better you become at taking notes. All right? You won't write down stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with your test or your papers or anything like that. You won't take down background information. You'll become better at writing down only the main points, the central ideas of what really has to be taken. So taking notes. And it's been shown that when you take notes, you actually do remember more of what's been said. It's just even if you don't look at them, even if you never look at them again, if you take those notes and throw them in the garbage on the way out, I wouldn't suggest it, but if you did, you're more likely to remember what's been said. And if you go home and actually read those notes again, your memory of what's been said increases even more. Okay? So taking notes, just actually forcing yourself to write stuff down, makes you more interested in what's being said and makes you a better listener. Okay? So that's one thing. Study the topic. Study the topic. Okay? Let's see, Bella, is particularly interested. She finds out a speaker is going to be talking about financing college, how to save for college, how to pay for college. I mean, it's not cheap anymore, all right? I don't know if it ever was, but she wants to know about that. So this person's going to be talking about, let's say this person's going to be talking about just financing, saving, money and how to make money on your investments and everything. And she's particularly interested in college, all right, and how to make money for college. So she might do some background information, background study on that topic, okay? So when this speaker comes up and he's talking, she understands what he's talking about, but then she asks this guy questions just about college. What about this investment? What about this? What about doing this? What about doing this? So she's more attuned to what he's saying, and she's got some follow-up questions, okay? So if you study the speaker, if you study the topic, you're not going in there totally blind. You know what's going on. You know what's being said. Maybe there's some terms, some topics that the person's bringing up, some subjects, so now you're familiar with it, okay? So study the topic, maybe even the speaker, before you go there, okay? That's a good idea. This is becoming tougher. Control emotions. All right. Control emotion and bias or opinion. That's becoming very difficult, especially on college campuses. Okay? Yeah, you might hear someone say something you are totally against. Totally against. We're going to talk about this in another class, especially about persuasive speaking. Okay? You owe it to the speaker to be a good listener, to let him or her say what he or she is thinking, all right, what they are believing. And then you owe it to yourself, too. Now, why do you want to listen to someone who you don't agree with? Why would you want to listen to someone whose opinion you are totally against? Why would you want to do that? For one reason, to find out if they screw up, to find out if they make a mistake, all right? And not to shout out, you're wrong, all right? But maybe later on in Q&A and questions and answers, you can bring it up. Or maybe sometimes you can write it to an editor or something. But just to find out. If you're not paying attention, you're not going to find anything wrong with what they're saying. So you want to pay attention just to find out, okay, if they've made a mistake. Secondly, you might learn something. Even if someone's saying something that you totally oppose, they're here, you're here, you might actually learn something, all right? You might find out something you never knew. You can go to a persuasive speech, not be persuaded in the least, but you might actually learn something, okay? Let's see. So, kind of give a fair chance. Give a fair chance. What else do I want to do? Anything else? Anything else? This is pretty good. Oh, Bella.
Look at the speaker, don't fucking
Look at the speaker. Yeah, we talked about that in another class about positive reinforcement, positive nonverbal. Look at speaker. And it's tough, especially on a beautiful day like today. All right? Eye contact. Yeah, as a speaker, you're going to be looking at the audience, but the audience should be looking at the speaker too. All right? Plus, karma. All right? I mean, chances are, well, especially in this class, you're going to be up here too. All right? But in any speaking engagement, just that common decency. Okay? But yeah, you want to have contact, look at the speaker at the same time. Okay? So now, I said I wanted to give you guys a little quiz. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some short little speeches for you guys. I'm going to give you some short questions, ask you some questions, no written questions or anything like that. Okay? Want to see how good you are at listening. All right? Now, we're going to start off short, and then we're going to go a little bit long. All right? So, yeah, I don't expect anyone to be on the phone when we're watching these. Okay. Let's see. This has been... Okay. Don't know why this... All right. It's a bad picture, but let's see. Okay. It's a bad thing about when it's sunny outside. Those shades don't block anything. All right, this was the tennis player Andre Agassi, retired a few years ago. This is his farewell speech, which will cover this kind of speech.
Andre wants to say a few words.
Thanks. The scoreboard said I lost today, but what the scoreboard doesn't say is what it is I have found. And over the last 21 years, I have found loyalty. You have pulled for me on the court and also in life. I have found inspiration. You have willed me to succeed, sometimes even in my lowest moments. And I found generosity. You have given me your shoulders to stand on, to reach for my dreams, dreams I could have never reached without you. Over the last 21 years, I have found you, and I will take you and the memory of you with me for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Very nice farewell speech. Did he win that day or lose? Lost. You guys don't sound very sure of yourself. How many years did he play? Okay. Whose shoulders did he stand on? The fans, yeah. The fans. Okay. All right. Very good. That was an easy one. That was, gosh, 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's not very long. Okay. That's all it was. Just 1 minute and 30 seconds. All right. Can I have a little bit longer one now? All right. Come on. This is David Robinson. He played for the San Antonio Spurs. Well, let's see.
David, tonight, two fellow Hall of Famers.
Why is it doing that?
His first head coach for my basketball.
No. Okay. Why? Don't want.
Honor. Thank you. I wrote a speech, but I don't think
This is what's dumb. If you look, here's a place for a basketball Hall of Fame, so you know they're all going to be tall. They got the microphone way down here, which is, every time I play this, I'm like, why didn't they raise it? Anyway, that's just a pet peeve. But, okay, pay attention.
You know, this is a great honor. It's an incredible, incredible honor. And I don't even think it really hit me until tonight. I came in here and I saw all these faces that have marked my basketball career from beginning to end. And just the joy that everyone's brought me and the love, and it's really just hit me. And I thank you for this honor. Thank you for being able to be here tonight. And they told me I can't talk very long, so I'll just give thanks. I want to acknowledge all of the people that came to support me. It means a great deal for me. All my family, all my friends, all my Naval Academy guys, go Navy. Spurs organization, my pastor. I want to say something to my boys. David Jr., my namesake. I'm very proud of you. I hope that this gives you something that you want to live up to, that makes you want to be proud of the Robinson name and to carry it on. And you're so intelligent, you're so wonderful, and I just want to say I love you. Corey, multi-talented, a man after God's own heart, and I love you. And I want to tell my son Justin, my youngest, he's my heart. He's always on my lap, always hanging on my neck. Brilliant, exciting, and a natural born leader. And I'm very proud of each one of you guys. And I hope this really makes you want to carry on the Robinson name. And I want to acknowledge my wife, Valerie. She's been amazing, my rock, my strength. I want to say to you, Valerie, that you know the best thing I've ever heard about anyone, and it's true about you for me, is that you make me want to be a better man every day. And I love you. I respect you. I admire you, and thank you for all the years you supported me and strengthened me. To my mom and dad, thank you for just placing a dream in my heart. You've been amazing. You planted a seed of faith in me that's grown and helped me grow into the person that I am. And so I love you and thank you very much. My brother, all my family here, Marty, Melly, and her family, they've been beside me for 12 years now, and thank you for your love and support. I want to thank the Spurs organization. They brought everybody out here, and I appreciate that. And I love you, Peter, Red McCombs, Angelo Drosos. Those guys were the masterminds of bringing me in, and they had more vision, more foresight than I did. So I want to thank you guys for that. I want to thank all my teammates. Timmy, you're my man. Have any of you guys ever got on your knees and prayed really hard for something? That was my answer to prayer right there. The best power forward to ever play the game. That's what I say. All my buddies, Avery Johnson, my partner, the preacher, and you know we wouldn't be who we are as a team, who the Spurs are right now without Avery and his strong voice and his strong personality. Thank you. And I've had a long trail of coaches who've helped me get here. Not the least of which is Mr. Larry Brown here. And I want to mention these two guys because the reason I brought them up here is both of them are basketball geniuses. One as a player and one as a coach. And both of them have
from Detroit.
Great influence in my life.
George Gervin, Ice Band.
The original Mr. San Antonio, George Gervin, laid a foundation.
Okay. How many sons did he have?
3.
All right. What easy one. What was the oldest one's name?
David Jr.
Okay. What was the youngest one's name?
Justin.
All right. What was the middle one's name?
Corey.
Oh, wow. What was his wife's name? Wow, you guys are good. What did his wife make him want to be? What was his answer? What was his answer to prayers? Oh, wow, man. Okay. What armed service did he play for? Navy. Man. Okay. Well, you guys are pretty good. Now, this is a good speech. We're going to talk about speeches, like thank you speeches, for lack of a better term. This was a good one. If you ever want to see a terrible speech, a terrible kind of speech, Michael Jordan's speech when he's inducted to the Hall of Fame. It's not just because I don't like Michael Jordan, but it's a terrible speech. What's that? Is it actually? Yeah, it is. It is actually. I wouldn't lie just because I don't like the guy. Yeah, because I'm older than you. I remember what he did to the Pistons. But yeah, he puts down people. He puts down his kids. It's a nasty one. This was a good one, classic one. Okay, now we're gonna watch one. It's a little bit longer one. All right, but it's a good one. It's a classic one. I often tell students if you're feeling down or something, you might want to watch a good college commencement speech because they're rarely depressing. Okay, that'd be a terrible one. This was a well-known one. After Steve Jobs passed away, some columnists referred to the speech. Maybe has anyone ever seen the speech? Usually there's one person. Okay, it's a good speech. It's a good speech. All right. Obviously, he has passed away, so he doesn't. A little loud. But pay attention.
This
there will be
brought to you by
there will be
University. Please visit us at stanford.edu.
questions. And notice he does drink water a couple times. See?
Thank you. I'm honored to be with you today for your commencement from one of the finest universities in the world. Truth be told, I never graduated from college, and this is the closest I've ever gotten to a college graduation. Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories. The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why'd I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college. But I naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of my working class parents' savings were being spent on my college tuition. After 6 months, I couldn't see the value in it. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer-animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. My third story is about death. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. About a year ago, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had a scan at 7:30 in the morning, and it clearly showed a tumor on my pancreas. I didn't even know what a pancreas was. The doctors told me this was almost certainly a type of cancer that is incurable, and that I should expect to live no longer than 3 to 6 months. My doctor advised me to go home and get my affairs in order, which is doctor's code for prepare to die. It means to try and tell your kids everything. You thought you'd have the next 10 years to tell them in just a few months. It means to make sure everything is buttoned up so that it will be as easy as possible for your family. It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas and got a few cells from the tumor. I was sedated, but my wife, who was there, told me that when they viewed the cells under a microscope, the doctors started crying because it turned out to be a very rare form of pancreatic cancer that is curable with surgery. I had the surgery, and thankfully, I'm fine now. This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades. Having lived through it, I can now say this to you with a bit more certainty than when death was a useful but purely intellectual concept. No one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet, death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. When I was young, there was an amazing publication called the Whole Earth Catalog, which was one of the Bibles of my generation. It was created by a fellow named Stuart Brand not far from here in Menlo Park, and he brought it to life with his poetic touch. This was in the late 60s, before personal computers and desktop publishing, so it was all made with typewriters, scissors, and Polaroid cameras. It was sort of like Google in paperback form 35 years before Google came along. It was idealistic, overflowing with neat tools and great notions. Stewart and his team put out several issues of the Whole Earth catalog, and then, when it had run its course, they put out a final issue. It was the mid-1970s, and I was your age. On the back cover of their final issue was a photograph of an early morning country road, the kind you might find yourself hitchhiking on if you were so adventurous. Beneath it were the words, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." It was their farewell message as they signed off. Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.
Okay. How many lessons were there?
3.
3? I don't hear one person answer that. That's not good. What was the first lesson? Connect the dots. What was the second lesson?
Love and loss.
Love and loss, yeah. Kind of find what you love. And what was the third lesson? You die, yeah. You're going to die. I don't know if I like that last one. But, do what you, kind of like, you're going to die, so do what you love. Okay, what kind of cancer did he have? What was the cancer? Pancreas. Okay. What college did he go to? Reed. What was the deposit? How much did he get back for the deposit on the bottles? $5. Whoa, you guys are good. Okay. Trying to think. What movie company did he start? Pixar. What movie did they come out with? Ooh, yeah, you guys are good. Okay. Did you like the speech? Yeah, it was pretty good. I'm going to tell you, it's a great speech in one way because I'm going to mention this a lot. He used stories. I mean, his entire speech was practically just story. I'm going to really emphasize that a lot in this class. Stories are a great thing to use in speeches. Your speeches are only going to be like 5-6 minutes long. You might think that's an eternity. It really isn't. But still, even in that short amount of time, you can use stories. Stories are a great hook. Every culture in the world loves stories. You start off with a story in your introduction, kind of like he did, and people are going to be magnetized. They love hearing stories, okay? You've probably got time for a couple stories at least in your speeches. You start off a story good, you tell it the right way, you've got your audience in the palm of your hand, okay? Use stories when you can. Okay, so, you guys did good. So, just to reiterate, be a good listener, prepare yourself, put the phone away. I should put that down. Phone. Put phone away. That's probably been the worst thing now. Put phone away. No texting, anything. Just get enough sleep, dress comfortably, take notes, study the topic if you can. Control the emotion. I'm going to tell you this too. I'd rather have, and I'll tell you this again when we do picking topics, which I think is next week. I'd rather have you pick a controversial topic than a boring topic. All right? I'll explain why later. But that means there might be a topic that's a little, you might not agree with. Control your emotions, all right? Listen to their opinion, give the speaker a fair chance, and look at the speaker. Don't look outside, even if it's a gorgeous day. Number one reason why I should listen in this class, it's going to affect your participation points. So your instructor's always watching, all right? Last thing, you're going to get out early today, but your next speech isn't for, I think, another week, but again, it's 45 seconds long, so you might think it's no big deal, but it's still 50 points. What you should start thinking about now, as I'll talk more about next week, is you're going to introduce someone who's famous. Introduce someone famous. It's not unlike the one you did the first speech, where you speak a classmate, but you're going to introduce someone who's well known. All right, could be from the entertainment world, could be from the business world, politics, whatever. Could be living or dead. Okay, but you're going to introduce someone. Okay, and because we talked about using gestures and body movement, I'm going to be looking for that. Next class, we're going to talk about the second half of nonverbal, using the voice. using your voice, how you can use your voice effectively. So since we'll cover that on Tuesday, that's an important class. I'm going to try to how you use that for your introduction speech. All right. For your political critique, let's not do for a little bit, but you should start, maybe watching some speeches now. Again, at least 15 minutes long. All right. Pick a political speech that's at least 15 minutes long, and apply what we've talked about in class to that. Okay. If you have any questions on that, let me know. All right. Any questions at all? No? Yeah.
So no homework for next class, right? Just get that.
Unless you want, yeah, just start looking. It's not a bad idea to start your political speech critique. And I should say, the thing that really hurts most students for the political speech critique, again, it's only 2 pages long, double spaced. They don't go into specifics. They just say, I really thought she was good at this, or something like that. Or they give me their opinions, She's a terrible speaker, I can see why people don't like him. I don't want that. I don't want to know by the end of your paper whether you hate this guy or love this person. I don't care. I want specifics, all right? Like, she pounded on the podium and she said this, and give me a specific line, all right? I thought it was a good idea. She really emphasized it. That's what I want. He wore this color tie. I thought it was distracting. Anything was good. I want that, okay? I want specifics. So, that's it. Unless you have any other questions, if you came in late, Sophia, I've got your speech for you here.
Good luck with today's lesson.